Good morning. Mary Ellen DeWitt here with Cargus Systems. I'm a CPA and I've been with Cargus a long time, over 20 years now. I've done a lot of GP and management reporter implementations and support, and it's one of my favorite topics because I really think that management reporter has a lot to offer for financial reporting. So I want to have a couple of goals for this session, and mainly it is to revisit Management Reporter if you've been using it for a while. So if you're looking for a basic intro, I would point you to the internet. There's things that we can do as far as Cargus training if you've never used Management Reporter, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. There is another webinar that was recorded on the Cargus website for converting from FRX, the older financial statement report writer, converting FRX to Management Reporter, and I'll point you to that if you're thinking of converting, and we can help with that as well. But I wanted to just step back and revisit Management Reporter if you've been using it for a while, look at ways to enhance your usage of this built-in tool for Dynamics GP, and just ways to review what you see in Management Reporter and think about ways to use it differently. So if you can see my screen, there's the report definitions here. Want to think about ways to organize them, use the basics here to expand on some of the formats, to organize it for efficiency, and just enhance the business understanding. That is the real point of using the financial reports in any case. So just to review, I'm going to use one that was created. I'm in a GP demo, so we're using the Fabricam company, if you're familiar with that. When we click on this, you'll see the rows, columns, and the trees that make up this report definition. So here, just to review, here you've got the row formats, descriptions, format codes, and the GL accounts that go with those rows. Also, calculations, totals, things like that. The columns then are used to give you the date, the dates of the periods, and to compare, so doing comparisons, and then also be able to do some minor calculations. And then, or extensive calculations, I should say. Then in the tree, this is your organizational structure and allows you to filter it down by certain dimensions, typically within your chart of accounts. And we'll talk about this and do a little more with the tree as we go along. One thing I want to point out here is that you can do things in the tree that are not in your chart. So if this is a division section, we still could have some more organization here. For instance, if the 000 division is basically your corporate, so if this is corporate, you might want to consider that administration and accounting are really underneath corporate. So you might want to organize it by indenting, right? And you can demote that reporting unit here, and visually on the left with this hierarchy, you can see that now corporate will roll up the administration and the accounting. So you can see it that way over there. Now on the right-hand side, you really don't see that indentation, but it's there. And when you would run a report, then you'd get not only the administration and accounting, but a roll up into corporate, which then still rolls up into the summary. So Management Reporter knows how to do that. Now businesses change all the time, so it's easy if you need to add another unit and add another division number if you need to, and then rearrange and resort and regroup, those kinds of things. And one of the things that some people do is want to show that security, right, and how that security will work. So let me just save this real quick and go out here and point out to our library view. So I'm going out to this output and distribution here. Now generally the default is to just go right out to the library, which we can see here. I've got this already open. This is the viewer. In the Fabricam company, in Management Reporter, there's this viewer. So as I see, I've already run this report, and I've got my summary units over here. And then I can see my library view over here. Typically, things just go right out to the library, and as you see, I've got a lot of reports already run. And often there is a public folder that's open to everyone. Just by default, the security is open to anybody who can get to the viewer. But I've added a couple of folders. So I right-click, I did this right-click, I did new folders here, and I've got a folder now for Manager 1 and Manager 2. Okay, so I set up this Manager 2. I'm going to look at my permissions. And I set it up, this is me at Cargus, and administrator. Okay, so I ran this out to be my folder, as I'm a manager here. You could set up Manager 1 to be a different user. So I have a coworker, Dave Zeza, and I've set him up to be Manager 1. Okay, so any security that would be to Dave could be visible there, and if it's mine, then it would be visible here. So back in the report designer, in the report definition, instead of just going to the library, I could go library and also Manager 2 or Manager 1. You can just click add and add another one there. You can also just go back and remove, as needed. Okay, so those things could be used for security reasons. Now on the tree, then, if you want to restrict what a certain manager can see, you can use the unit security. Okay, so I've got it's a little bit wide here. Let me just adjust this so I can see it a little bit better altogether. All right, so let's say that I'm accounting, and I can go out to the accounting unit security here. I'm trying to get so you can see it all on the screen. There it is. All right, I can then click on for accounting, the accounting row. I could click unit security and add a user, me, and also the administrator, I guess. Holding down the control key, I can pick the second one and say that that's good. Those are the people that can see that one. For administration, I could choose, the Dave Zeza user and the administrator. Okay, for that one. So those are the people that can see that. And because of the security I've got on the library folder over there, when it gets over there, those are the things that are going to be visible. So when I run this, if I save this and I run this report again, I change it to some periods that have some data. We're out to 2027 now in the test data. And it's going to go out, running out to here. It ends up looking like this, where we've got the library and this data here open. We've got it run out here. But when I click on the accounting, so normally it would look like this if I run it all. When I run it based on the settings that I've got now, when I do this generation, even if I run them all, well, while that's running, we'll go out to the library and see. Now, I wanted to point out, while that's running, a couple things out in the library. as you see on the library, I've got lots of things already run. When I run these over and over, it does create versions. So if I'm going out here, I can right-click and show the versions that have been run. So I've been doing a lot of testing on this. Here it's popping open. Another view. So every time you run the library, it does open another version of this. So I just want to show that I'm in as M. DeWitt, and right now everything else is grayed out. All I can see is accounting, the way I ran it right now. So even if I click on these things, it says this report can't be used. So even if I try to click on it, because I'm in as me and all I could see is the accounting, that's the data that I'm going to see. So the point here is you could have viewers have access to the library and feel comfortable that when you set security, they're only going to be able to see their department, their division. So with those manager security settings on the tree, and then even giving them a certain folder, okay, that is what they're going to see. So running it that way, that's all they can see. So again, it's going through that kind of quickly, but if you're interested in having more users use the viewer, which you get an unlimited amount, there's no extra charge for that, you could have them set up, and they don't have to be a GP user. You could have them as a management reporter user only. So the point there. Okay, I wanted to step back and just go back here to another bit about the viewer. I am set currently to run this out, the option here, to management reporter viewer as the default viewer. Okay, so it's under tools. Just go back a second. If you're taking notes, you've got tools, options, and to use the management reporter viewer as the default. Okay, if you take that off, what you're going to get then, and I've already got this run here to save time, is a web browser user. Now it works in Chrome and Edge and Internet Explorer. I've not tested it in Fox Pro because I don't have that Firefox. But I know that it does work in those other viewers. And what you get when you run it then is more of a web-based view like this. You can still see the tree. Okay, so here's your tree view, and you can see when you run that, I can see accounting, I can see administration. You know, you're seeing the same things that you see when you're in the library view. This is still able to do go-tos. You can see go-tos to certain sections, of the report. You can zoom in. You can print. You can download. Okay, so you can still get to the management reporter viewer or the library. You can also export out to Microsoft Excel from here. Okay, so it's a handy tool. And the one nice thing that I like about this is that it's refreshable. So if I go in and just change my view here, I'm going to do just a slightly different report so I can show you how this works. If I run the balance sheet, all right, I'm going to change it so I got some data here. I'm going to run this balance sheet. I'm going to change it to run out to the web browser view. Okay, change that, and I'm just going to run the balance sheet here. It'll open up my browser, and then just to show you the value of this one, I didn't really like the web view until I realized that as you're making changes in GP, you can refresh it into that web view and see them immediately. So it's kind of you can do a what if, you can make changes in GP and have that going, have it show up immediately in the web view. So here I've got a balance sheet, and I've got I'm just looking at some assets here. I've got a savings account of $120. Well, I forgot to enter some interest for 2027. So if I go back to GP and I open up a bank transaction entry, and I go, I've got my the right date here. I want to change it to increase adjustment. So I'm just going to do an increase adjustment to my savings account for some interest income. All right, let's say that was maybe $25. Okay, I tab down, it's going into my savings account, and the other side here is my interest account. All right, there for $20 also. All right, so when I get that, 25, okay, that 25, right. All right, so when I post that, and that's going to go through, that should go right through to the general ledger. We won't run that, but that's going to go right through to the general ledger, general posting journal, okay. Now, okay, so then back on my screen in the viewer here, if I refresh this, whoops, yes, spell my name off there. It goes through and it should refresh a little quicker to me than regenerating in the and then opening up the library and everything. But now I see that is where I expected it to be in my savings. That looks a little more right to me now. So just the idea that this version is refreshable, and as you're going and making changes in GP, they'll show up automatically. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to my, a different one here. I want to just point out drilling into GP and the way that would work. This one is a little bit of a different kind of report, but it's got a row format here. Pretty simple. All right, and then just a very simple column layout. Oops, got somebody else looking at my stuff here. Column. All right. Okay, so when I run this, it's going to run out to a financial account, and I already ran this financial account and transaction out to the library. So I want to just point that out. Here's a link to this one. Whoops. This one here. All right, so I ran that out as of 2026. So the point here is that once you've got your report run out to the, especially into the library view, this works also in the browser view, okay? But I've got it here, when you're running out, you run it out to the most summarized level, okay? But as you're clicking on things, you can drill down into the GL account level. So you can see the accounts that make up this total. Now, further from that, you can drill down and look at the entries right here in Management Reporter. So again, the point being, if you can have a viewer answer some of their own questions by being able to drill down, that's a help. Now, this doesn't show you a whole lot of data. It is possible to add other columns over here, for instance, customer vendor, for instance, cash, but if you were in an expense section, you could have the invoice number, and certainly you've got the date, so you can answer more questions, the invoice, the vendor ID, the vendor name, some things like that. So you can answer more questions by being able to drill down. Now, if I go back a step The other nice thing is, now I do have GP open in the background, but if I click on the GL account, the amount, now I also have a Dynamics button available to be able to drill down into Dynamics. Now you need to have a user license in GP to see that. But the cool thing is that that opens to that GL account, to that date range. And then again, I can see entries, and if I have a GP access, I can drill into the journal entries, I can drill into the actual source document, so I can answer a lot of questions on my own by drilling directly into GP. Okay, so you have a choice there about drilling either into the detail in Management Reporter or drilling down into the Dynamics. So there. So that also carries forward into exporting into Excel. So I have an Excel button up here. I have print. Printing I would be careful with because it could be a very large lot of pages if you've got all the way, especially all the way down to the transaction level. XPS is a Microsoft version, sort of like a PDF. It gives a report that you can run in a viewer that's not editable. So if you need somebody to view and not be able to edit, that's one way to do it. Now, I'll point out that emailing is a link. Okay, it is not directly emailing the way we used to in FRX. There's a few of our customers who do email out a link to a SharePoint site, but emailing directly out of Management Reporter is not the way that they wrote it to be able to do it. But if you do want to export to Excel, I've already run this one out. It was an income statement, a P&L. That I already ran out. So we ran it out at the financial, the account level, and then transactions. So I wanted to just show you that you can run it for the summary. You can also get a summary, by the accounts, and then here it is down to the division level. So if you're using a tree, you do have to get down into the unit level to see the transactions. But at that point, I can see the financial, the account level, you see accounts here, and the transactions for those GL accounts. And again, if I had more columns defined, and I don't, but if you had more columns defined, they would show up here in Excel as well. So then you can keep going. Here's administration summary. Here's the administration accounts. Here's the administration transactions. So again, if you want to export to Excel, if that's what your people are used to, then that can also be done, saved as a file normally in Excel, and emailed around or saved in a controlled location for people to use. So I would suggest trying some of these things if you're not already. I think they're very, very useful, and being able to drill down has its own joys, I'll say, because it does answer a lot of questions. People can do that on their own. Okay, I wanted to step back into the report designer and just talk a little bit about organization here. In recent years, with people who have used Management Reporter a lot, and sometimes when they've come from FRX, we get formats here and reports that are not really being used. And it's helpful, I think, to take some time and decide, okay, these were testing, I don't really need these anymore, they're just kind of cluttering up my stuff. And if you're thinking of upgrading, then it might be a good time to go through and just do that exercise. So one of the things that you can do is see where things are being used. Am I really using this format? So I'm in my row definitions, not the report, but the row definitions. If I right-click on this and go to associations, I can see that this one's used on the weekly sales and discounts default report. Okay, so this association is is a report that is actually being used. But if I look at this row definition, let me just close this report here. If I look at this row definition, it might have come from when I upgraded or something. There's not really accounts over here. I don't think this one's really very valuable. So maybe I want to go out to this sales report. Again, it was the weekly sales and discounts report. So I'm going to go to that weekly sales and discounts report and pick a different row format. I could go to, for instance, the sales accounts. If I've got accounts actually on this one, so if I go here, I actually have accounts. This is probably a better row format here if I want to run a sales report. Okay, if I save my report definition with this new row format, then I can just click save on this. If I go back to the row definitions and look at that default one again, this one here, and my associations, I don't have an association now. Okay, it might make sense to delete that format or put it somewhere where it's not cluttering up my list of definitions. So one of the things I could do is just move it down here into my default row definition. I could also go back here to the top and click and make a new folder. So if there was some reason to have a specific company or a specific manager division or something like that, there were specific row definitions for that unit, I could create a new folder and organize. So if I wanted to move this default report, I could click move. I could make it down into my default row definitions and just say okay, and it would just move out of my list here down into the sales default. Okay, and then I don't have to see it when I'm looking at a big list. Okay, you can do that for columns and trees and reports. So if I have a set of default report definitions, they can be moved down here. You could have, for instance, a template section. So if you add, or if you are frequently adding new companies in GP, adding new managers, something like that, you could have a folder for that specific company. That might be helpful. For instance, if you need a new trial balance, okay, you can go and say, I need a new trial balance for this specific company. So you can go to File and Save As. This would save a new report definition. If you save as and then change the company to a different company, then that's where the data will be pulled for that. You could organize that. Likewise, report definitions can be used. So if you go into the report definition, I can do read only here. I could go to a file and save as, and save it as a trial balance for a new company, or one that's going to have some sort of different account structure, right, and not disturb the one that I already have. So the file save as has been a really great addition, I think, that we can do basically a copy and modify. All right. As you're working with these, it's kind of fun, I think, to say, well, I need to do, a new report for this. How can I do that? It might be a change in the columns, in the rows, or sometimes just mixing and matching. So I know I really enjoy using this trend report. Now, I just wanted to point out that column. You could have it match up with different rows and mix and match. So just to remind you about this trend report, it's got every month out here. So instead of saying just base period, we're actually defining the different period numbers and that it's periodic. We are in our base year and we're running actual here, not any kind of budget. Well, this print control is kind of cool, I think. It allows you to say, only run the months that I really want to see and then leave these other months out. So it's saying, I look at the definition here, print only if the period is less than or equal to the base. So that's a cool thing. So if I'm running April, for instance, then I would expect to just have the months through period 4, and then it leaves these out. So it's possible to change this up to where you're actually looking at budget included in here. You can have budget columns inserted. If I just click on that and right click, I can insert a budget column, for instance, and have budget in here instead. Put in an actual FD column just to show you that. I can put in another column here and actually use my budget, okay? And then I could have another conditional filter here to say, if it's greater than the base, then print the budget, okay? So you can kind of play around with this, and this would also be a 1, all right? So I could insert those budget columns as I went through, make them be also conditional, but that would be a way to say I could do actual for 4 months and then budget for the other 8 months to get a true, more of a forecast as to how that my year is going to end up. All right, I'm going to get out of that and not save it. Okay, another thing that I think is not used very much, but I think probably should be in Management Reporter are the groups. So I wanted to just say, once you've got a lot of your report definitions figured out, if you want to be able to run them in a group, you go to the report group window, right? And you can have folders under here. I could have a new one. We could call this monthly. You could just rename it, for instance. Call it monthly. Okay. And then define that group. If I wanted to say, do a new group, I can have a report definition and add reports to this group. So I could have a balance sheet, for instance. I could have a cash flow. I could do a P&L, income statement, for instance. Say OK, and run all of those at a default base period. So I'm currently at S-1. This is March, so it's automatically going to run February for me for this date. If I wanted to, I could save that and then run that whole group at once. Okay, now that, I'll just call it, let's see if I can name it monthly. All right, so got 2 there, delete that one. Yep. All right, okay, got it open. This one, there we go. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that group now, the monthly group, make sure this is right. Sorry, I got 2 the same name here. There we go. That one. I delete the second one. All right. Then once you've got your groups, you could set up schedules. Okay, so again, doing a new schedule. Would allow me to do individual reports on a schedule or a report group. So I could go to that group, pick monthly, and decide how often I want to run it. So maybe that one is just monthly, right, on the whatever day of the month. Or maybe I want to run it weekly, just kind of to see where we are. So I come in on Monday morning, and I've already run this thing the day before, and I've got my groups already, I've got my reports already run out to probably the library at this point, maybe not so much the web browser. So in that case, you might want to have it set to run to the library and even out to, a certain perhaps monthly folder that's only there for my review. All right. So I've been through several things talking about organization here, both in the library and within the designer. And I hope that's been helpful. It's been some things that have come up in recent years with some of our larger customers that have really benefited from some of this organization and being able to copy templates for new companies. So I've been impressed that that's a helpful thing to not, especially if your chart of accounts is similar. Of course, that's something that we always recommend, is that when you add new companies or new divisions, that you use the same chart where you can, to make this sort of thing easier. So again, just remember that you have unlimited users for Management Reporter. You have security that you can set as to what those users can do. You can have viewers that are not GP users and unlimited viewers. So being able to use it through a terminal server or installed on actual workstations. So I want to just mention real quick that we have new releases of Dynamics GP. We got a new release the end of 2018. There'll be a new release in June of 2019. So you may want to think about upgrading this year, especially if you're on a version 2013 or 2015 or earlier. If you're not thinking of doing it this year, maybe you want to, as you get into your budget for 2020, budget it for next year, and you can start talking to us about that. The sooner we know your intentions and can get a proposal for you, the more accurate probably your estimate will be, and that we can get you on our schedule for doing upgrades. They're not doing huge changes to Management Reporter, but there often is a hot fix. There's often new packages that they put on to keep improving both GP and Management Reporter, and we'd be very interested in talking to you about that if you need it. If you want to contact us about training, if any of this interests you and you say, yeah, you talked about doing that trend report with a budget, and how do you do that? Or if you want just basic Management Reporter training, for instance, if you've come into your company recently and GP and Management Reporter are new to you, we'd be happy to have a relatively short training session. I think you can go pretty far with just a couple of hours of training. And if you need to, again, talk about an upgrade, we'd be happy to do that. And also just wanted to say that you can contact us. There is a link on the cargus.com website for support or contacting, for training. Or you can start a support ticket, customer care@cargus.com.